Imagine a shallow puddle on a hot summer day in the middle of a desert. You pour a cup of water into it, hoping to see the water level rise. But the heat is so intense that the water evaporates before the next cup arrives. This is exactly what it feels like to build wealth in the early stages of your life. You work hard, you save your money, and you sacrifice your weekends. Yet when you look at your bank account, the numbers barely seem to move at all. It feels like the math of the world is working against you, personally. Most people stay stuck in this puddle phase for their entire professional lives. They believe they are doing something wrong, or that the system is completely rigged. But the truth is much more fascinating and much more dangerous than that. The rules of money are not the same for everyone at every single level. There are 3 invisible thresholds in wealth building that change the physics of your life. Crossing each one changes how the world treats you and how you treat the world. Once you understand these numbers, you will never look at a dollar the same way again. Let us travel back to the year 1434 in the city of Florence. A man named Cosimo de' Medici noticed something strange about the capital he managed. He realized that money behaved differently depending on how much of it you possessed. Below a certain point, money was purely defensive, and you lived in constant fear. Every single expense felt like a potential catastrophe for your family. But above a certain point, money became a shield that allowed you to take risks. The Medici family understood that wealth was not just about buying expensive things. It was about crossing the line where you no longer needed the permission of others. Today, those same invisible lines exist in our modern economy and our banking systems. The numbers have changed since the Renaissance, but the underlying mathematics remain identical. Almost nobody talks about these thresholds because the financial industry benefits from your confusion. Your employer benefits from your feeling of being trapped in a cycle of necessity. But today, we are going to pull back the curtain on these 3 specific milestones. The first milestone that changes everything is $100,000 in invested assets. This does not include the value of your home or the furniture in your living room. This is money that is actually working for you in the stock market or other assets. Getting to this first $100,000 is the most brutal part of the journey. It is the long and dusty road where most people give up and turn back. At this stage, compound interest feels like a fairy tale told to keep you quiet. If you have $10,000 and earn 8%, you only make $800. That is barely enough to cover a single month of groceries or a small car repair. It does not feel like wealth because it does not change the way you live your day. Because it does not feel like it is working, many people stop saving entirely. They buy a nicer car or a bigger television because the future feels too far away. But those who survive this phase realize that the second $100,000 is much faster. The first $100,000 is built entirely with your sweat and your labor. The next $100,000 is built with a combination of your work and your capital. Once you reach this point, the boulder finally starts to roll down the hill on its own. You are no longer pushing it uphill by yourself with every single paycheck. The psychological shift here is even more important than the actual bank balance. When your money makes more in a month than your side hustle, your mind opens up. You stop thinking about survival and you start thinking about actual growth. You begin to see that you are no longer a victim of your monthly expenses. But to get there, you must survive the boredom and the silence of the early years. The middle class is often trapped by a phenomenon called lifestyle inflation. As soon as they earn more, they spend more to maintain a certain image. This is exactly how you stay in the puddle phase forever, without even realizing it. If you want to reach the next level, you must keep the hose running into the pool. You must ignore the urge to look rich before you actually possess true wealth. The second net worth milestone that changes your reality is $500,000. This is the point where you develop what experts call walk-away power. At $500,000, you are functionally immune to the fear of unemployment. If your boss is toxic or your company is failing, you can simply choose to leave. You do not need to find a new job by next Monday to keep the lights on. This freedom changes your posture in every single meeting and every negotiation. When you do not need the money, you somehow become more valuable to everyone. You can set boundaries that other people are too afraid to even mention. You can take 6 months off to learn a new skill or spend time with family. At this level, the banking industry starts to treat you with a different kind of respect. They no longer see you as a source of fees and high-interest loan payments. They see you as a private client who deserves special rates and dedicated attention. They want to keep your money because your capital is now a serious force. At $500,000, your portfolio earns $40,000 at 8%. For many people, that is enough to cover every single basic necessity of human life. Your housing, your food, and your insurance are now paid for by your past self. You are no longer working for survival. You are now working for your legacy. This level is where the merely comfortable are separated from the truly secure. The fear that keeps most people awake at night simply disappears at this threshold. But many people reach this level and make the mistake of becoming arrogant. They think they have won the game, and they start taking unnecessary risks. They forget the lessons of the puddle phase, and they start gambling with their freedom. To reach the final stage, you must maintain the same wisdom that got you here. You must transition from a defender of capital to a strategic architect of wealth. The third and final milestone is $2.5 million in investable assets. This is what we call the inversion point of your entire financial existence. At this level, your money makes more in a year than you could ever earn with your time. If your portfolio earns 6%, you are generating $150,000. Most professionals work 60 hours a week for decades to reach that income. But at $2.5 million, that money appears while you are sleeping. The mathematics of your life have flipped upside down at this specific point. Trading your time for a salary now becomes an inefficient use of your resources. Wealthy people at this level do not work for money because it is a bad deal. They would rather spend their time optimizing their assets or exploring new ideas. Every hour spent in a cubicle is an hour lost that could be spent on strategy. At this stage, you have transcended the normal relationship between humans and work. You are no longer part of the traditional economic machine that trades effort for survival. But this level also comes with the greatest dangers to your character and your future. Many people at this threshold start to believe they are smarter than the market itself. They chase exotic investments and concentrated bets to reach 10 million quickly. They forget that the goal of wealth is not just more money, but lasting peace. Think of Robert Morris, the man who funded the entire American Revolution. He was the richest man in the nation and had crossed every threshold imaginable. But he became overconfident and speculated wildly on frontier land in the wilderness. He went from a position of total power to dying penniless in a boarding house. He understood the numbers, but he did not understand the rules of the third level. The third level is about protection, sustainability, and the long-term legacy. It is about ensuring that the wealth you built survives the worst market crashes. It is about realizing that you have enough and that you no longer need to prove anything. As you move through these 3 milestones, your identity must evolve with the numbers. If you act like you are in the puddle phase when you have millions, you will live in misery. If you act like you have millions when you are still in the puddle, you will go broke. Each level requires a new mental model and a new way of interacting with the world. Start today by identifying exactly which threshold you are currently approaching. Do not be discouraged if you are still pouring water into a shallow puddle. The heat will eventually fade and the water level will begin to rise visibly. The most important thing is to keep the hose running and to never stop the flow. Building wealth is not a sprint, and it is not a matter of luck or special talent. It is a game of mathematics, psychology, and the courage to wait for the results. The banks and the media want you to stay distracted by the latest stock tips. They want you to worry about things you cannot control, while they collect your fees. You know that 100,000 is the hardest, but it leads to the second stage. You know that 500,000 is the gate to your true personal freedom. And you know that 2.5 million is the point where time belongs to you. The path is clear and the rules are ancient, and they are waiting for you to play. Take the first step today and start building the fortress that will protect your future. Your future self is waiting for you at the next threshold, ready to say thank you.